Hey guys, Joe Pye here at Advanced Innovations. Welcome back to the shop. As last we left off on the mini mill, I was working on the base and I had said that that side door has got to go away. Well, this is what I'm coming up with right here. And I can promise you that this video is not going to end up where you think it's going to end up, but stay tuned. You might actually be quite surprised at where it does go. This is the door that I'm working on, and yes, it will be functional. I am going to put a little doorknob on there and a cam lock. And I have yet to decide on where I want the hinges placed and what style of hinge, because there's a million different possibilities. This particular hinge style, let me light that up for you, is just a simple little horseshoe with the screw hidden underneath the door component. And I'm not sure if I want to be able to see that little remnant right there when I close the door. That means on the inside of this casting, let's get this out of the way. On the inside of the casting, I'm going to need to be able to extend this area of the wall out so I have some place for the screws to go, and that way when the door closes you don't get to see the screws. Well, there you go, give a mouse a cookie happening all over again. Anyway, I'm going to take a little break on this and let my mind digest exactly what style hinge I want. And I was looking over the print, and I thought the next most interesting looking part on the print was this guy right here, the universal joints. Now, I've never made a universal joint this small, so this is going to be interesting. And I do have an approach, and that approach incorporated a hand ground homemade tool. And then back up one more step. What'd you make the tool out of? What's it called? What are they good for? And that's the topic of today's video: drill blanks and reamer blanks. This is going to be a little piece of brass. It's going to be about 10 millimeters across, 375 tip to tip, maybe 350 by the time I'm done. 1.5 millimeter hole through the center, 060 imperial, and threaded to a 1-72, not a 172. I've had questions on that. Anyway, let's take a look at the drill blank, tell you what a drill blank is, and I'll tell you, once you know and understand the application and versatility of it, you're going to slap yourself on the forehead and say, why didn't I ever have these before? Let's go out to the bench, take a look. I got to tell you, one of the most useful things I think I've discovered along the way on my journey is the drill blank. Now, they come in a drill blank and a reamer blank. So as far as the size that you're looking for, if there's a letter, number, or wire drill size, you're going to be able to find this material in that diameter. A drill blank will be nominal to -0.2, maybe 0.3. A reamer blank will be nominal to plus size. So a reamer is going to be a little bit bigger. So for something that's a 1/2 inch diameter like this, the difference between a drill blank and a reamer blank, you're not even going to notice it when you load it up in a collet. But if you're making a reamer, naturally that's what they're used for. People that make tooling will start with a blank like this and grind a reamer out of it. But for me, I make form tools out of mine. I make collet stops out of mine. This is the collet stop for the back of a 5C. And you say, what's the benefit? Why can't I just use a piece of standard drill rod? Well, you can torque down on this until the cows come home, and you're not going to leave any footprints in it. The screw is not going to distort the rod. Man, that's on there now, I'll tell you. Let's see, if this was a piece of drill blank, or excuse me, a piece of drill rod or stainless, there'd be a tooth mark in there. There's nothing. The stuff holds up like iron, and it's going to hold up forever. Comes in a variety of different sizes, like I said, and over the years I've collected a bunch of different diameters that I use for scrapers, form tools, picks, probes, punches, whatever. Because it's glass hard and all you got to do is grind it. What, you don't have a grinder, you say? Well, that's not a problem. I'm going to go to a pedestal grinder this morning, just standard 2-wheel, one on either side type grinder, and I'm going to make a form tool out of this, and I'm going to make that little universal joint that I just showed you on the screen. I'm going to start by cutting this down to the center line, preferably with a little backdraft on it so that it doesn't drag. And then I'm going to do that again from the other side, so I'm going to end up with a little wedge on my tool that looks something like that. The first grind is so that the tool is on center when held in a collet. If you're going to hold this in a boring head and spin it, well, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on center. Well, close enough would be good enough. I'm going to put it in a collet. So as it rotates around its own center, the geometry has to be true. There we go. So the geometry would have to be true to the center of the blank. And when you grind it, take into consideration that it's not going to be presented in the machine this way. It's going to be in the machine this way. So don't grind a left-hand tool when you're looking for a right-hand application. That's easy to do. So I've heard. I read it in a book. Moving right along. All right. Now, halfway through puts it on center. The other half will determine the diameter of the feature that you're going to leave behind. Now I'm looking to leave behind approximately a 125, so that means I have to be about 62 thousandths beyond center on the second grind. And naturally it's got to be long enough to clear the feature that you want after the fact. So mine's going to be about 1/4 of an inch back. That should be plenty. Let's go over to the pedestal grinder, fast forward this, and a micrometer would be handy, or a caliper, so that you know exactly how much you're grinding off. Doesn't have to be exact. Let's see what happens. With the drill blank ground to approximately half on a slight back relief, I think you can probably see that. Now realize the more you grind back on the tip, the smaller it, or the farther it'll get away from center, so plan ahead. I'm going to put the bottom relief on it now, so that'll form the second cutting angle. Actually, whatever you want on your part, put it on your tool, because this is going to be a plunge operation. So I'm going to look to get this as flat and perpendicular to the center line of this blank as possible. A little bit more. And now bear in mind, any of the cylindrical material that is remaining on the blank, depending on how you're going to use it, could be a rubbing surface. So I'm just going to scuff this up and know that that's going to clear. So let's try that. If you ground this tool correctly, it should look very much like, and probably function exactly like, a tree pan tool on a lathe. You could probably cut a facial groove on a part right now. Plunging this in a lathe operation, and it would work. Everything should be ground accordingly. So we have a little back relief, minimal. Front relief, that's fairly aggressive, doesn't have to be that aggressive. And the distance from the inside of the tool to the center line of the part is going to dictate the diameter that it cuts. So it is coming around this way. And when I put this in the collet and plunge down on the piece of brass that I have as a sample, we're going to see exactly what we get. But there you go. Not a big deal. Hand ground. Real time on that grind was about 8.5 minutes. Let's set it up and see if we can make something that looked like the picture. The material has been indicated true to the spindle in the y-axis, so the center line of the tool and the center line of the material is exactly the same. I'm going to go down about 85 thousandths from contact, and I'm going to rotate the piece 90 degrees at a time, and hopefully this works and doesn't snap off. Find out. Let's do it. All right, let's pop this out of here, put it over on the lathe, face off the ugly on the end, part it off, and we're done. Interesting little piece. With the part back in the lathe set up for parting off, instead of facing off the waste material, if you're planning on doing something like this just for yucks or whatever reason, make sure that the initial 4 journals that you put on there, there's a step right there, stick around, I'll tell you where that came from. If you plan to put 6 journals on a part like this, make sure that when you do the initial 4 that you do them far enough in so that you can do this at a later date. Once it goes back to the lathe, simply turn that on, drill and tap it all the way through, plunge the backside journal with your parting tool, then shift over the desired journal height and finish the parting operation. Then you can have a little part like this to sit on your desk and people will come in and futz around with it, and chances are somebody's going to steal it when you're not looking. Anyway, there you go. 6. Okay, fresh out of the machine, this is what we got. I don't even think I need to just give you a scale on that. That says it all right there. This is tiny. Now the plunging operation that you saw me do with that hand ground form tool. There we go. Be very careful if you're going to do that. The depth of the cut, that's nice and sharp. As you come down, let's just say like this, as you come down with that tool, you go down too far and you're going to start leaving flats on the journals of the opposing feature. Now if that doesn't matter, well, that's fine. But you can see by the amount of material that there are on either side of the boss here that the depth could have been set a little bit tighter. Diameter wise, side to side, I'm very pleased with what I got. Now this is only a test piece. The actual piece will be a little bit smaller than this, but for a proof of concept, I wanted to grind up the tool, introduce you to drill blanks, and show you the operation start to finish. These are 172 screws. I'm going to speed this up a bit. Depending on the size of the yoke that you're going to use, naturally that will be the starting diameter. Ultimately, the ends out here will not be round from the stock that I started using. They will be flat so they can pivot like this once they're installed. And that is a great way to make a universal joint. On the print, on this particular model, this is called out as a sphere with cross holes, and the cross holes are not threaded. The cross holes are clearance for this size screw. So these are going to screw through the yoke and the threads are going to protrude into the part, and that will be the pivot point for the feature. Well, not a big fan of that, so I'm going to change things up a little bit when I do mine for real. And I'm going to use the head of the cap screw as the pivot journal, and we're just going to call that a day. I hope you got something out of that. That's a great technique. The drill blanks, look them up in your local hardware supply catalog, your industrial supply catalog. Get a couple of them. They come in sets, they come in 10 packs, they come in singles, whatever you need, and chances are it's going to be a decimal size to suit your fancy. Probably a metric size too, if I had to guess, but I'm not going to go there. Anyway, there you go. I hope you found something in that video helpful. If you did, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, drop by the store, check out the swag, grab a fixture plate or a t-shirt while they last. And as usual, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're well, happy, and safe, all of the above. I am Joe Pye here at Advanced Innovations in Austin, Texas. I'm out. Alright guys, to anybody that stuck around this far into the video, thank you very much. A little tip on spin indexers like this. Sometimes you will grab one of these and rock it back and forth and it just jumps all over the place. That's because this collar has migrated that way from impacts on the end of the crank, releasing parts out of the collet. Not a big deal to take care of that. Locate the screws, unloosen the screws, pull back on the spindle, push forward on this, tighten them back up, and double check it. And put an indicator against the face of this thing and push this back and forth, see if it moves. If this is extremely tight, extremely hard to spin, you may have a little too much pressure on this. Gentle tap on the end is probably all it's going to take to give you the clearance that you need for smooth operation. Keep that in mind. It's a good tip.